Friends, let us continue our discussion on gas solid catalytic reactions, and today we will wrap up this discussion. In the last session, we were looking at non-isothermal catalytic reaction in the pellet, that is, heat effects are not negligibly small, and therefore, depending upon the type of reaction, namely if the reaction is exothermic, then temperatures inside the catalyst pellet will be higher than the bulk temperature, whereas the concentration will always be lower, and if the reaction is endothermic, then temperature inside the catalyst pellet will be lower than the temperature at the bulk. Now, if both concentration and temperatures are lower, as is the case with endothermic reaction, the rate of reaction will be lower inside the catalyst pellet compared to that in the bulk. But for exothermic reactions, if the temperature is high, even though concentration may be low, the higher temperature may result into rates of reaction inside the catalyst pellet higher than those occurring at bulk condition, and hence the effectiveness factor, which is the measure of our observed rate to rate if at the bulk condition, could be greater than 1. That is one aspect that we had seen in the last session. So, let us look at it one more time. So, what we were saying is, this is our Thiele modulus on the x axis, this is our effectiveness factor on the y axis, and we characterized our reaction whether it is exothermic or endothermic by looking at a parameter value beta, the Prater number, which is a measure of maximum temperature rise. If this number is less than 0, we have endothermic reactions, and if reactions are endothermic, as is the case with all these cases over here, so the effectiveness factor is uniformly less than 1 as we are increasing the Thiele modulus. But if reaction is exothermic, that is beta is greater than 0, then we have effectiveness factor greater than unity. This is our unity level. So, you have effectiveness factor greater than unity, and the reason for which I just now mentioned, that conditions inside the pellet, namely temperature, makes being higher than the bulk, it ensures that the rate of reaction inside the pellet is higher than that in the bulk, and leading to average values also being higher. Now, there is another feature of non-isothermal pellet which is also apparent in this figure, and we will spend some time looking at that behavior. That behavior is, namely, let us say that I have my Thiele modulus value 0.3, I mean you could choose any value, but suppose it is 0.3, and then at this Thiele modulus value and beta value, let us say 0.8, I have 3 possible values of effectiveness factor. In fact, what I am saying is, for beta equal to 0.8, Thiele modulus equal to 0.3, I could have effectiveness factor which is close to unity, that is my solution 1 over here, effectiveness factor which is almost equal to 8 or 9, let me put some value 8, which is my solution 2, and effectiveness factor which could be as high as 100, this is my solution 3. So, for same value of reaction conditions, I could in principle have 3 different values of steady states, a behavior which is characterized by multiple steady states. Everything else is same, it is the same catalyst pellet, the properties of the catalyst pellet are same, my Thiele modulus or diffusional resistances, whatever it is same, the reaction, heat of reaction, everything is same. But then how come we do not have a unique solution? If you look at solutions in this regime, these are all unique solutions. Given a value of Thiele modulus, I have a effectiveness factor. But in this particular regime over here, there is a possibility of multiple steady states. Now, why do these multiple steady state arise when we have the non-isothermal reactor situation? The answer to this is not very straightforward, but we can look at an equivalent situation and try to understand why is this behavior so important. We will try to look at this example in for a slightly different example, and what we are looking at is the multiple steady state for a non-isothermal situation, catalytic reaction, but slightly different. What is happening in this particular reaction is butane dehydrogenation to butene over a catalyst, and this catalyst is now a wire catalyst, a thin wire, and the elements are only on the catalytic elements are only on the surface of this wire. So, there is no diffusion to speak of. So, what is important here is you have bulk and then you have surface, and the entire reaction is on the surface. So, there are only external resistances in this particular case. So, first let us look at the behavior that we see here. So, what we are seeing here is a bulk temperature on the x axis and surface temperature, that is temperature actually on the surface of the catalyst, Ts, that is on the y axis. So, what do we see here? We see here the following behavior. As I am increasing my bulk ambient temperature, my surface temperature is increasing, and it is increasing in this particular manner. So, these are all the points that we will get. Okay. This result is for different values of butane concentration. So, let us focus on one particular example over here. Now, if you notice these solutions, my bulk temperature is around 100, the surface temperature is also around 100, I mean approximately. That means, there is very little reaction that is taking place, because if the reaction was to take place and it is exothermic reaction, temperature should have been higher. Now, let us look at the solution at this particular point. As we are increasing our bulk temperature, let us say beyond 275, suddenly we find that surface temperature is much higher. Surface temperature is about 800 in the range of 800. So, what have we done? We have done a simple experiment where we took butane, we took catalyst in the form of wire and brought about the reaction, and then kept varying the bulk temperature. So, I started with low bulk temperature of 50, I found my surface temperature is also 50, and so on. So, I got a set of solutions where surface temperature was almost same as the bulk temperature. Now, after about increasing the bulk temperature beyond 275, and these are all approximate numbers just to illustrate what is the idea here. So, after we increase the bulk temperature beyond 275, I found that my surface temperature was suddenly around 800. My wire became extremely hot. There was a lot of reaction that was taking place, and then any increase in temperature beyond this, I got the same high temperature. So, let us see, this is one high temperature, this is another high temperature, and so on. So, I had this. Then I decided to reverse the direction of change in bulk temperature. That is, I was at this particular temperature 800 and bulk temperature, let us say 300, almost 500 degree change. That means there is a lot of reaction. So, what I did was we start now cooling the bulk. So, from 300 I went to 275, 200 and so on and so forth, and I found that my wire was fairly hot still. It is about 750 degrees centigrade. But when I lowered the bulk temperature beyond this 75 degrees or so, once again I saw my wire was now cold. Or in other words, what has happened is, as I kept on increasing my bulk temperature, I travelled along this line, my solutions were along this line. At some point the temperatures suddenly increased, and then as I kept on increasing the temperature, I followed this blue line. When I reversed the direction, that is kept on lowering the bulk temperature, I got this solution, and then suddenly temperatures drop down. Now, how does this relate to multiple steady state? What is not seen, because this is experiment, is that there would have been alternate set of solution, and we will see that when we do a mathematical analysis, some set of solutions over here which you cannot get in a numerical in a experimental situation, but they are there, and I will illustrate that to you in just a few minutes. But what therefore it implies is, let us say that we had a bulk temperature of 200. At this bulk temperature of 200, I had a possibility that my surface temperature is also 200. So, my bulk temperature is same 200, surface temperature is 200, solution 1, or it could have been somewhere over here. I mean, this is just an approximate value, but believe me that solution is there around 400, that is solution 2, or this value which is about 800, solution 3. A behavior which is similar to what we saw in the previous scenario. That is, same value of bulk conditions, I could have 3 different values of my surface temperature, or 3 different ways in which my wire will be present, or 3 different extent of reactions. Hardly any reaction, a whole lot of reaction to 3, hardly any reaction in 1, and intermediate in 2. So, now let us try to understand or analyze this situation. This is easy to analyze, and therefore, we will analyze this. But I want to again draw an analogy with the previous scenario, that is same conditions, 3 different solutions, 1, 2, 3. The reason for both these solutions is same, the reaction is exothermic, only here we are looking at internal mass and energy transport limitation. We will illustrate this same idea with external mass transfer limitation, which is relatively easy to look at. So, let us try to go back and look at this scenario and try to develop the energy and mass balances, so that we get a clear understanding of what is happening. So, let us say that we are looking at reaction A going to B, it is taking place on the surface of the catalyst. So, now this is not a porous catalyst, but it is not a porous catalyst, but it is a non-porous catalyst, they are like a wire. So, just to illustrate. Okay. So, this is my surface, this is my bulk. So, my concentrations here would be CAB, temperature would be TB, on surface it is, let us say, CAS and surface temperature TS. Okay. So, concentration will decrease from CAB to whatever value and temperature will increase if it is a exothermic reaction. So, let us first write the mass balance for this. Okay. Mass balance. What is happening on the surface? The material is diffusing. So, film theory. So, our rate of mass transfer is kg into CAB minus CAS, and we want to express it, this is per unit surface area. So, let us say surface area per gram of or per unit volume of catalyst, or this is our surface area, and this must be same as the rate at which reaction is taking place on the surface. So, at these conditions CAS and TS multiplied by the volume of the, to keep the units consistent. So, this is my mass balance. We can immediately write a similar energy balance which says SP into HF into TS minus TB equal to same rate, but now energy is involved. So, into minus heat of reaction delta H. Okay. So, now if we divide these two equations, so what we have achieved is we have written mass and energy balances, and you will see now similarity with our approach when we talked about mass and energy balance for internal diffusion, because the approach is same, the physics is different, but the approach remains the same. So, now if we look at these two equations, I can divide this first equation by second equation and do a rearrangement, and what we will get is kg into CAB minus CAS will be equal to minus delta H, or rather sorry, we will get HF divided by minus delta H into TS minus TB. So, just combine this mass and energy balance together. Just as we did earlier, let us define our dimensionless concentration as CAS by CAB, so that everything goes between 0 and 1, and TS by TB. So, if we do that, then we can write our mass and energy balances which we have defined over here in terms of dimensionless quantities, and we will essentially get, by taking these two equations together, we will get V equal to 1 plus beta into 1 minus u, where beta is now kg minus delta H CB by CAB by bulk temperature. U is the dimensionless concentration, V is the dimensionless temperature. What is this beta? Beta once again has a significance similar to Prater number, because if you look at when U is 0, temperature at the surface is different from the bulk, or we can write V minus 1, which is temperature difference, as beta into 1 minus u. So, beta is the maximum value of V minus 1, because that is when u is 0. And what is V minus 1? Surface temperature minus bulk temperature divided by bulk. So, that is the dimensionless delta T. Now, you will realize the same thing that we talked about when we looked at internal diffusion. So, now we can go back to our mass balance and energy balance equations, and instead of temperature we can write in terms of concentration, or other way round, U as 1 minus 1 by beta into V minus 1. They are both trying to tell us the same thing. Last time we looked at in terms of concentration. So, let us try to look at the whole behavior in terms of temperature now. So, let us go back to our energy balance, which we had over here, this energy balance. But now if we write it in terms of dimensionless quantities U and V, and in particular writing U as in terms of V, then we get the following. Let's try to work it out and see how we get that. So, we have Sp into Hf into Ts minus T bulk equal to Vp into, let us say, rate constant Kv into rate of reaction CAS. This is all at temperature of the surface. Okay. So, if we now do all this rearrangement, we are left with the following. If we rearrange this equation by taking U, V and so on, we will get 1 by beta into V minus 1 equal to Damkohler number dA into G of V. What are these Damkohler number? Beta is what we have already defined over here. It is a measure of temperature increase. Damkohler number, it works out to be Vp by Ap into Kv evaluated at bulk conditions divided by the mass transfer coefficient, okay, which we can write in a manner that we wrote earlier, Vp by Ap into 1 over kg divided by 1 over kV. And what is Vp by Ap 1 over kg? That is the time scale for external mass transfer, and 1 over kV is the time scale for reaction. So, Damkohler number dA is a measure of, or a rating parameter for external mass transfer resistance to external reaction rate or kinetic rate, the time scales, similar to Thiele modulus which we defined earlier, which was comparing the internal diffusion process to reaction process. Here, since we are looking at only external, we have this particular expression. Now, what is this G of V? This G of V is a little involved function of V, but mathematically G of V is e raised to gamma 1 minus 1 by V into 1 minus 1 by beta into V minus 1. This is actually the dimensionless form of a reaction rate, and you can see that this is coming from Kv and this is coming from concentration Ca in respective dimensionless form. So, let's put these two together. So, what this equation is doing is our mass and energy balance. So, let's rewrite that energy balance differently. So, we get 1 over beta into Damkohler number as G over V divided by V minus V minus 1. Okay. So, let me recap once again. We have a catalyst surface, temperature here is Ts, or in terms of dimensionless quantity V, the bulk condition is 1, and the energy balance gives us, by doing all these algebraic manipulations that we talked about. Basically what we did was, we wrote mass balance, we wrote energy balance, defined dimensionless quantities, and put all these things together. Finally, we ended up with a single solution, a single equation in terms of dimensionless temperature. So, the solution V, that is the dimensionless temperature, is given by this particular equation. So, now let us try to see what happens to this solution. How does temperature changes as we are changing beta and Damkohler number. Okay. So, let us look at that solution, and what are we essentially looking at? We are one way of solving a equation. This is a equation, this is a equation in single unknown V. So, once we know the value of beta and Damkohler number, we can solve this equation for a value of V. Numerically you can solve it. Remember, this G of V is not a simple expression. So, you may not get analytical solution, but certainly numerically you can solve it. But there is a graphical way of also solving this equation, and which makes it easy to understand. You know, as they say, one picture is worth 1,000 words. So, how do you solve this graphically? Typically, this is how it is done. Look at this right hand side and left hand side. So, this left hand side is equal to right hand side is the solution of this equation. There is only one unknown V. So, why not we plot right hand side as a function of V, left hand side as a function of V, and then the solution of this equation must be the intersection of these two curves, right hand side equal to left hand side. So, typically I am not saying for this equation, let us say that this is my left hand side, this is my right hand side as a function of V. So, the solution LHS equal to RHS must be the intersection point. We will apply the same logic to our energy balance and try to see how is the solution emerging. So, let us look at this plot over here. So, what we are seeing here is that what we are seeing there is the solution of dimensionless temperature against, see, our equation is 1 over beta into Damkohler number equal to G of V divided by V minus 1. So, our right hand side as a function of V is plotted over here, G of V divided by V minus 1, and this solution is of this particular form. Okay. Why this particular form? The reason being that this is coming from our rate of reaction. As our temperature is let us say V is 1, the solution has a infinite value, this particular, and as we are increasing temperature, it has this kind of shape. Now, what is our left hand side? So, this is my right hand side. What is my left hand side? Left hand side, if you look, it is a constant, it does not depend on V, the left hand side. So, left hand side as a function of V is just nothing but a straight line. So, this is my left hand side for a given value of 1 over beta into Damkohler number. Okay. So, now now we can see that for a given value of Damkohler number, I could have possibly 3 solutions. 3. Solution 1, where if you look at just mathematically, solution 1, the temperature is very close to unity. That means, coming back to this example, this particular line where bulk temperature and surface temperature is almost close to unity. Solution 2, intermediate, and solution 3, where temperature, dimensionless temperature is fairly high. Now we see the connection between the experimental observation and why we are getting this multiplicity of steady state. The only thing remaining that is required is, here we change the bulk temperature. Here now what do we change? We change this constant. So, this line will go up or down depending upon the values of 1 over beta into Damkohler's number. So, now how is Damkohler number related to bulk condition? If you look at this Damkohler number definition over here, Damkohler number depends on temperature Kv of Tb. So, temperature, bulk temperature will influence Damkohler number. What about beta? Beta also is influenced by the bulk temperature, okay, because there is. So, in changing bulk temperature is equivalent to changing 1 over beta into Damkohler number. Okay. So, dependency of beta on Damkohler number is, or beta into Damkohler number will be proportional to Kg of Tb divided by Tb. So, if you change bulk temperature, you will change the Damkohler number into beta. So, now we know how that bulk temperature change is equivalent to changing this 1 over beta A. So, let us look at what happens when your 1 over beta A, beta value is at this lower limit, then what happens? Any bulk temperature or any 1 over beta A value in this region, there is only one solution of high temperature. That means, which branch we are looking at? We are looking at high temperature branch. Any to be consistent with the color we use for the first figure. So, what we are saying is, let us say that this is the critical value of beta. Okay. Let us say that critical point E. Okay. So, any value of 1 over beta dA at a point and any lower value, this is the tangent. Okay. The flat line is tangent to this curve at this particular point. So, if you are looking at any solution over here, any solution and any beta value below here, there is only one solution and that is of a high temperature. So, this is my high temperature regime which corresponds to this particular solution. What about other way around? Any, let us say this is another critical point beta. So, let me now erase few things, it is getting crowded. Okay. So, any let us say this point B. So, any beta dA Damkolor number at point P and greater than that, that means on this regime. So, where is my solution? My solution now will be only close to unity, that means this particular regime. So, any parameter value lower than this particular critical limit, anything lower than that I am on the upper branch. Anything above this upper limit, this green line over here or red line over here, any value of parameter above this I am at a lower branch, and in between these two values you see there are three solutions. It turns out that this particular solution is inherently unstable. The only solutions you can experimentally get is solution 1 and 3. That is a characteristic of typical 131 multiple steady state. This is called 131 because if you change this parameter 1 over beta dA, we go from 1 steady state to 3 steady states to 1 steady state again. So, that is why it is called 131. The intermediate one is typically inherently unstable. So, this is a behavior which is typical of non-isothermal catalytic reactions, illustrated even with the experimental scenario. We will come back to this behavior when we talk about reactors, which is little later on. So, what we have seen so far, and we will conclude with this the discussion on catalytic reaction, and we will now initiate discussion on non-catalytic gas solid reactions. So, let me refresh ourselves of what we saw in the session on gas solid catalytic reactions. We started by saying that whenever there are more than one phase, we have boundaries, and therefore, whenever there are boundaries, there are resistances to transfer both for mass as well as energy. Given this fact, how does these resistances or how does this mass and energy transport process influence my reaction? That was the focus of our discussion for last several sessions. So, we started looking at external mass transfer and energy transfer limitations in internal mass and energy transfer limitations. We started our discussion basically with a first order irreversible reaction in an isothermal pellet following a simple first order kinetics in a slab geometry. Here the idea was to see how does mass transfer limitations influence the rate of reaction, and we saw that whenever there is a resistance to mass transfer, as is the case in a porous catalyst, the concentrations inside the catalyst pellet are lower than the bulk, and therefore, rates of reactions are lower. In order to characterize how important or how much is the extent of mass transfer limitation, we defined the Thiele modulus, which is a ratio of time scale of diffusion to time scale of reaction. So, if diffusion time scales are longer than the reaction, that means diffusional resistances are stronger, and therefore, Thiele modulus, which is the ratio of these two time scales, has a high value. And if Thiele modulus has a high value, we get an indication that this is a situation of mass transfer limitation. Now, under these conditions, the concentrations inside are significantly lower than the bulk, and therefore, the average or observed rate that you get is also significantly lower than that in the bulk. Now, when the rates are lower, how do we characterize them? So, we characterize them by taking the ratio of this and calling it an effectiveness factor. Now, this effectiveness factor therefore, has a value which is close to unity if Thiele modulus is small, and it has a value which goes as inverse of Thiele modulus if the Thiele modulus value is large. Typical small value and large value ranges are Thiele modulus less than 0.3, we say that diffusion is not important. Thiele modulus greater than 3, diffusion certainly is important, and it is a transition between these two limits. So, this was as far as the slab geometry, all these conditions, the reaction was considered. We then went on relaxing the constraints one by one. We saw that even if your geometry is spherical or cylindrical or irregular, you still have a same behavior. We relaxed first order reaction consideration and looked at general kinetics, and you still get a pretty much similar behavior. We considered how do we determine whether mass transfer limitations are important or not by defining observable Thiele modulus and getting experimental measurements to get the value of that Thiele modulus and determining the extent of mass transfer, energy transfer limitation. Now, the whole idea of defining this Thiele modulus was that for first order reactions, we saw that Thiele modulus depends only on or rather effectiveness factor depends only on Thiele modulus. So, if you know the value of Thiele modulus, you can find out what is the observed rate even without knowing what conditions prevail inside the catalyst pellet. So, this idea has been extended for several other situations where this solution may not be exact. The idea being that you conduct experiments by considering different extent of diffusional limitations. So, Thiele modulus being different, or for that matter bulk conditions being different, and measure the observed rate. And this relationship between observed rate and Thiele modulus is more or less unique. So, when you actually do your reactions in the big reactors, if you have the same value of Thiele modulus, one hopes and by and large one does get the same observed reaction rate even if the reactor may be of a large size. So, that is a idea, and its basis is the results are exact for a simplified situation. That is how engineers work. You try to get exact solutions under simplified conditions and then hope that at least in the small neighborhood of this simplified problem, this approximation or these conditions still hold good. All right. Then we finally also relaxed the constraint on temperature, namely the reactions are non-isothermal or conditions are non-isothermal. So, the temperatures can increase or decrease, and then we saw two distinctive behaviors, namely particularly for exothermic reactions. For endothermic reactions, the behavior is not so interesting in the sense that already depressed reaction because concentrations are lower are depressed even further because temperatures are also low. But interesting situation arises for exothermic reaction because depression due to depression in rates due to concentration depression or lowering of rates due to concentration depression is sometimes more than made up by increase in temperature, and therefore, we have observed rates more than that one can get on the bulk conditions. Not only that, you sometimes can get 3 different steady state values for the exactly identical operating conditions. Something which we tried to explain by looking at a case of only external energy transport and mass transport limitation, which was little easy for analytical manipulations compared to internal diffusion. So, this in short completes our discussion on gas solid catalytic reaction, and in the next session we will start discussion on non catalytic reaction. That will be the subject matter for our next session. Thank you.